Okay, this one is going to be for my neurodiverse folks, because I know there's some things that a lot of neurotypical people leave out of their instructions. I've actually had problems with that myself because I'm on the autism spectrum and I am dyslexic. So there's some really teeny tiny steps that neurotraditional folks don't think to tell us. And I'm going to cover those things. For people that are neurodiverse, autistic, trying to do this and failing miserably because people assume that you know these things and you don't. And you need them explained to you. So I'm going to do that for you. Now, I have everything hugely scaled up so that we can really emphasize this stuff. This is a 10 millimeter hook, and I've got some chunky yarn. So this is like a size 5 yarn. First thing that you always need to do is build your slip knot so that you can start your foundation chain. The simplest way that I've found to do this, I actually learned from Mikey on the Crochet Crowd. Take your working yarn, that's the stuff coming from your ball, in this hand. You want your pointing finger, and just enough yarn, a couple of inches, so that you can go 1 wrap, 2 wraps. Hold your tail right here with your fingers. Then start with this loop back here. Pull it forward. Oops. And that happens. What happens when you do that is just go back to the beginning. If you screw up, and I screw up all the time, so don't feel bad. You go back loop forward, and then this that was the front loop becomes the back loop, and that comes forward and over the end of your finger and off. And then you pull it tight. And now you have your lovely little starting loop. And when you're starting your foundation, keep that tail right in this hand. That goes through the loop. Pull that baby tight. And oh look, you're ready to go. And the thing that I've learned about the foundation chain, keep this tail in your hand. I keep it looped around my thumb so that I can just work. And I'm going to do like 10 stitches because we're just doing basic stuff here. And don't pull those loops tight. You want them nice and loose because we need to be able to work with them later. If you pull them too tight, you are going to have huge problems later. Okay, 1, 2, 5th, 6th, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, and then the thing that they don't tell you, one of the things they don't tell you, is take this and flip it over so that the ridge is facing away from you. And then you've got your loop that's on your hook. You've got your loop that loop is coming through. You're not going to go to that loop. You're going to go to this loop. So we've got 1, 2, 3. And we're in that 3rd loop. Come up here where you can see real good. I've got my working yarn here on the top. And that ridge, she's away from me. So this is the loop that my hook is in. This is the second loop. We're going to go in that third loop. 1, 2, 3. And then how you do your yarn, how you loop it over your hook, everybody's different with that. I just take my hook, come down, grab it, pull through, pull through. Some people do a double loop there. I find that too complicated. It's a lot simpler for me to just do one loop, pull through, pull through. So again, that's going to go through the next loop, come down, grab my yarn that's coming from my ball, pull it through the first loop. So now I've got 1, 2 loops on my hook, the one that I started with and the one that I just created. And I'm going to pull that through. And now I'm down to 1 loop. Do that one more time so that you can kind of get an idea. I'm going to go through this next loop, go through, grab my yarn, pull it through, 1, 2, pull it through. Now, if this isn't clear enough, please comment and let me know. I can go back and make it more simple. I can get a different camera, whatever. And then we're going to do that again until we get to the end of our loop. One thing, if you have trouble with getting your rows to end consistently, make sure you're counting stitches. If you did 10 stitches out, do 10 stitches back. So I've got 10 stitches here, and now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 that I've already done. Got 5 on my hook. And again, we got 1, 2 on my hook. And now that's 5 done. 6, 7, 8. Whoops, I only did 9 stitches. Oops. Oh, wait. 9. And then to finish it off, I don't have another stitch to go into. That's okay, because we have to turn. And this is how we end our row. We don't go into another stitch. We have our starting loop. We're going to make our second loop. Oh, now we got 2. We're going to pull that through. And that's the end of our row. And this is what it looks like after we've done our foundation and come back. You see that I don't have any extra sticking out. Now I'm going to take this, and this side that's away from me, I'm just going to turn it around. And now we've turned our work for the second time, because we had to turn it once when we finished our foundation chain. Now, a lot of people are like, okay, what do I do with this? Some people work it in when they're done. Some people work it in as they go. Some people, well, everybody's got their own thing that they do. I work it in as I go because I don't like having to do a whole lot of tails at the end because I'm lazy. And so we're just going to do the same thing that we did previously. We've got our 1 loop. And this is how I form my stitches. Everybody finds their own way to do it. I like to go in the... Actually, I'm going to show you what I've got right here. I've got 2 loops. 2 parts of that loop. This is where my working yarn's coming through. What I've got on my hook, and then the loop we just made. So I've turned it, and now I'm going to go in, not this one, but this one. And I'm going to grab this part that's closest to you. It's farthest from me. So I'm going to grab that. And then I'm grabbing my working yarn, pull it through, 1, 2, pull it through. And if I wanted to work this in as I was working, I just grab that and make sure that, grab this, make sure I loop. I'm just taking my hand and I'm twisting it like this, so that this is my working yarn and this is my tail. I reach down and I grab that working yarn, and what happens there is it ends up caught right here. So I just pull that tight, and I pull it through like I would normal, and then I pull it through. And then every stitch I do, I make sure that I do that. Here's my tail. Here's my working yarn from my ball. Take that, twist, so that it ends up, like that. And I go through that back loop, I grab my yarn, I pull it through, and I pull it through. And, oh look, one loop. One more time. My working yarn from my ball. Got my tail. Getting my tail with these 2 fingers right here. Grab it there. My working yarn's on my thumb. Twist. Twist the thumb towards yourself. Grab that working yarn. 2 loops. 1 loop. And I'm going in that very top loop right there. Get this pulled out here so you can see it. Very top loop right there. The farthest away, and it's the topmost. I'm grabbing it. Got my tail. Got my working yarn. Twist. Oh, I grabbed the wrong one. Oh no! And this is where even experienced folks have problems. Okay, so I got my tail, working yarn, twist, grab the working yarn, 2 loops, 1 loop, ready for the next. And I'm going to pretend like I'm done with this and just finish that row off. And then I've come to the end. Don't have any more loops to go into. Alrighty then. So we go 1, wrap it around, got our 2 loops through, and then we turn. And you see how that's already starting to come through and look square. And that's also where tension comes in. A lot of people, when they're doing tension, they'll wrap it around a finger or 2 just to keep consistent tension on their yarn. Because if you don't have consistent tension, you're going to have issues with your work coming out not square. You're going to have issues with the stitches not all looking the same or all looking right. And how I manage tension is I just keep it run through my hand. I don't like to wrap it around fingers because it feels weird to me. But that's also sensory processing things that us neurodiverse folks have to work with. So I just keep a hold of it with my hand. And again, I'm working through the loop that's farthest from me, topmost. Got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, oops. And then this, my last stitch on this row is 10. And then we turn. And that's the importance of keeping our tension proper, because if my tension wasn't right, this would look weird already, and it's not. So my tension is good. And that's basically how you get started. However many stitches you want to do changes how wide your project gets, of course. And then how deep you go, that's basically sky's the limit with that. Now, I had one more question that was asked to me because working in the round, like making so that you can make easy beanie hats and things like that, the instructions are not clear for folks like me. I spent I don't know how long trying to figure out how to work in the round. I Googled, I did YouTube searches, I searched all kinds of videos. I couldn't figure it out, and I couldn't figure it out, and I couldn't figure it out. And I struggled, and I fought for years. For, oh, it was 4 or 5 years that I researched, and I tried, and I struggled, and I fought, and I researched, and I fought, and I failed, and I failed, and I failed, and I failed, and I failed. And I got really frustrated. And then I found out that I was autistic when I was, yeah, it was just before I turned 40 that I found out that I was autistic. And I got on one of these wonderful groups on Facebook, and we were talking about what productive things do you do as a STEM, a self-stimulating behavior, things that you do to calm yourself, self-soothe. And one lady was like, well, I fold laundry. And another lady was like, I do dishes. And somebody came up and said, I make preemie hats for my local hospital. And I was like, I admire that really a lot. Because I have tried and I have failed and I have tried and failed and gone through all of this stuff to try to learn. And I don't understand it. How do you do that? And she was like, well, you've done all this research and you haven't managed to figure it out. Have you ever had it explained to you in, and I'm quoting this woman directly, in Aspie terms? And I said, no. And she asked if I was willing to give it a shot. And I was like, well, I've tried everything else, so why not? And she explained it to me using every single tiny step, like I'm going to do here for you in a second. And I tried it, and it finally clicked. I finally understood. And it was because I was trying to learn things the way that a neurotypical person does. And I am not neurotypical. And all of these things that I had looked at, researched, tried to figure out, they left out these teeny tiny steps that they assume everybody already knows. But we don't. And once this person explained to me the teeny tiny steps that were being left out, it was, oh my gosh, how was I not able to do this before? And it was a shock, and it was amazing, and I could do it. And it was like, wow. So I'm going to do that for you guys now. Again, we're going to do our basic slip knot. 1, 2. Pull forward, and ding. And what we're going to do is we're going to make 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to do a slip knot, go back to this very first stitch we did, our beginning loop, hook into that, and we're going to do a slip stitch, come through that first loop, like that, and then pull that loop through the second loop, like that, and then we're going to take and come over and finish this, make a loop over our hook, and then come through that loop, and now we've got our beginning. I want to be like this, because even though we're working in a circle, this is still going to be just like we were with working with our work flat. So this is going to be just like that, except we're going to add an extra stitch at the end of every row. So I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to go into this very first loop. It's going to be a little bit of work. So we grab that very first little loop, right here. It's going to be the loop that's the most outside. And we're going to work just like we did before. We got 2 loops. The loop that we had on our hook, and the one that's already part of our project. We're going to bring our yarn through, wrap it around our hook, pull through, pull through. And then we're just going to work just exactly like we would if this was flat. Just go straight to the next loop. You want to grab the outermost one. This very next. We've got one. This is the loop that we had at the end of our last stitch. This is the next loop that's part of the work already. Take the yarn, wrap it around your hook, pull through, pull through. And we're going to do the same thing with the next stitch. Grab your outermost one. So we've got our yarn that we had that was our active loop from our last stitch, the part of the work that's already part of the work, and then the yarn that's on our hook that we just wrapped around there. Pull through, 1, 2, pull through. And then just exactly the way that we've been doing, come back, grab this, pull through and pull through. And this is the last loop that we had, the one that we did our slip stitch with, to connect our very end with our very beginning. I'm going to go through that, pull through, 1, 2, pull through, 1. And then we're going to add, this is just like when we're working flat, 1 loop, come through, and then now that I've done that, I'm going to come grab this loop right here, grab it, pull it through, and oh look, we're starting another round. And just keep working. And you're always grabbing the outermost loop that's next. And here's our tail. That means that we're back at the beginning and the end. So that's our last stitch that we just did. That's the last stitch of our round. So we're going to add a stitch. That's our added stitch. And it's just like we do when we're flat. Come around, got our 2 loops. We didn't get this loop from our project. We just added it in. And then we go down to our 1 loop. And then we grab this first loop here. And we've got our loop that we just did that if we're flat would be our turning loop. And then the loop that we grabbed that was the very beginning of our next round. And then we take our yarn, work it over. 1, 2. And your tail will almost naturally work itself in here. So you don't even have to worry about that. And then you just keep going. And At this point, you can follow any round stitch project. Any project that works in the round, now you can do it. Now you've got it. If you have any questions, please leave me the questions in the comments. I will do my best to simplify things even more if I'm not being clear enough or I'm not showing you clearly enough. Let me know, and I will do my best to fix those problems for you and make it even clearer. Thanks for watching, and I love y'all.